Well, hello, friends. Greetings to you in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You know, when Paul was concluding chapter 3 of his epistle to the Ephesians, he said these words about God. He said, "Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think according to the power that works in us." Did you hear what he's saying about God? He's saying that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above anything that we could ever think or imagine. Now, I don't know about you, but I can imagine some pretty wild things. I really can. I'm gifted in that area. But Paul is saying the greatest and the wildest thing that you can imagine, that's just God's starting point. That's just how awesome He is. So why don't you go ahead and trust God for some amazing and great things in your life, because He is well able to go above and beyond anything you could ever think. Well, welcome to Friday's edition of Take 5. You know what we're talking about? We're dealing with the subject that we've entitled Living by Faith, and we're looking at Hebrews chapter 11 because I believe it's such a broad picture, a great example of so many lifestyles of faith, of men and women from the Old to the New Testament. Things that we can glean from them are more than you and I could ever count. We can see how faith brought them to things and faith brought them through things. We can see what faith requires out of their life, the things that they have to endure, and the blessings that come from it. So there's just such a beautiful picture with example after example of what faith is and what you and I should be striving for in our daily lives. That faith that we're striving for is what's supposed to set us apart from the world, and I believe the best place that we can learn these examples from are looking to God's Word. Now, we're just going through Hebrews 11 verse by verse, so there's really no rhyme or reason to this. We're just going through it and seeing what the Bible says to us about faith. Today, I want us to pick up with verses 9 and 10. Speaking of Abraham here, it says, "By faith he made his home in the promised land, like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God." Now, from this passage, we learn that faith knows whatever circumstances are in our life, we're always just passing through. Because that's what Abraham was doing. He lived in the promised land like a stranger, like a foreigner, like a nomad. He lived in this land in tents, never had a permanent dwelling, never lived in an 18,000 square foot mansion or anything like that. He lived like a nomad in this land because he really never owned the land. Only one piece of land was owned by him in Canaan, and that was some land that he bought from the Hittites for a cemetery for he and his family. But he never took complete possession of the land, but he dwelled in it because he knew God was going to give it to him and his seed. He dwelled there like a nomad, like a stranger, just passing through because he knew that God was going to give it to his descendants. Now, the great thing about Abraham is by this point in his journey, Abraham is so in love with God that he really doesn't care if he ever inherits the blessings of the promised land or not, because he's already got his eye on heaven. He's already got his eye on that eternal building that God has created for him. And so regardless of how good or bad things were in Canaan, Abraham had his focus on the Lord, because things weren't always good in Canaan. There was a time when Abraham found himself right in the middle of a famine in God's promised land to him. Have you ever found yourself in a place where you knew God wanted you, but then sometimes bad things would come up right in the middle of where God wants you? Well, Abraham found himself there, and I guarantee you, if you'll look hard enough, you found yourself there as well. That's why it's so important to be so in love with God that you've got your focus on Him, you've got your focus on heaven, and it doesn't matter to you what comes, good or bad, you are just passing through because your eyes are on eternity. That's where Abraham had his faith. It was on eternity, and he knew that regardless of how good Canaan was, heaven was always going to be better. Let's read one more verse. I believe that's all we're going to have time for today. Verse number 11 speaks of Abraham's wife, Sarah. Says, by faith Sarah also received power to conceive when she was past the age of childbearing, because she considered him faithful who had promised. From here we learn that all of our folly will turn into faith when you see God's faithfulness. Make sure you hear that. Now, when you read this verse, Sarah sounds like a mighty woman of faith, and she really was, but she wasn't always that way. At first, when God gave His promise, she doubted because she was 65 years old and had never had a child. Then when she turned 75, she was growing impatient, and she tried to make things come to pass through her own means by taking her servant Hagar and giving her to her husband Abraham for him to sleep with her so that they could have the promised child. That wasn't God's plan, and that made a mess that the world's still dealing with to today. Finally, God comes to visit Abraham when he's 99 and Sarah's 89 and says, a year from now, you're going to have a child, and both of them laugh. 24 years Sarah has been laughing. She's been ministering in folly, as it were, to the whole family there, to Abraham and everyone, doubting and laughing and not believing. For 24 years, this has been going on. But when God came this time, He meant business. And He said, a year from now, it's going to happen, Abraham. And I know your wife's over there laughing, and I know you've laughed, but you just take me at my word. A year from now, it's going to happen. And just like God said, a year later, Sarah, 90 years old, and Abraham, 100, gave birth to the promise of God. Now, when Sarah saw the faithfulness of God to fulfill His word to them through all the doubt, through all the manipulation, through all the folly, and through all the laughter, 25 years later, when Sarah saw that, all of her folly was turned into faith because she had saw the faithfulness of God. Let me tell you something, friend. There's not a person here today listening to this video that can ever say that God has failed you. God never has. He's been faithful. Throughout 2022, He kept you. He was faithful to you. And today, our folly should be turned into faith. Our laughter, our doubt, our manipulation, it ought to be turned into faith because we have seen the faithfulness of God, and we have seen that when God starts something, He will absolutely finish. So whatever we face in 2023, let's face it with faith because we have seen the faithfulness of God, and we do not laugh, we do not doubt, and we do not have folly anymore. Well, hey, it's been good being with you this week. I've got to get out of here. I look forward to being with you on Monday's edition of Take 5. Until then, God bless you. Have a great weekend. Remember, friend, trust the Lord. He will never fail you.